All right. Well, what a hard act to follow, you know. I want to start by saying that Clive is somebody who, when I first got into the music business, was somebody who always had time for somebody who was young and didn't know anything to sit and explain things. And he was always a great collaborative person and a mentor, personal mentor of mine. So I feel very privileged to speak on any kind of platform that he has spoken on. Um, so this whole session is really about networking and collaboration, right? And the first thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to move this podium out to the way, and I wanted to have a chair here. The only reason I'm not sitting is because somebody in the back won't see me. Because what my belief is, for these kind of music mastery and other types of musical conferences, these should be conversations, right? This shouldn't be me speaking at you. I'm not up here to speak over your head. I don't want to spend 20 minutes talking about something and everybody here is like, well, what we really wanted to hear Steve talk about was that other thing or this other thing, or I had a question or I had a concern, or I always wondered this or I always wondered that, right? So networking and collaboration is about exactly that. It's me and you. So I'm going to really call on you guys to be involved in this session. It's not just about me standing up here or me and Dana standing up here and telling you what we think. It's also you guys asking questions. So the question and answer period will probably be longer in this segment because I want to hear what it is you guys want to know and what you guys are concerned about. Having said all of that, your network is your net worth, right? So it sounds cliche, but it is absolutely true. And to illustrate this point, I first started off with Clive, who is somebody who I've known for longer than both of us are prepared to admit that we've been alive. And then my first job in the music business was given to me by none other than Jerome Hamilton of Headline Entertainment when he was at Solid Agency and working at Sunsplash. Here we are some years later, right? And Jerome is booking manager for Sean Paul, right? And a super important part of of Sean's career and of my life, right? Another example is this man on the screen right here is Dana Shayegan, who will allow to tell his own story about collaboration and networking. But this is somebody who I met many, many years ago. Actually, he was working with Sean before I was working with Sean. Dana, you want to give that story?
Yeah, can you hear me, y'all? Y'all can hear me?
May I look more volume?
Check 1, 2. Yo, yo. You hear me?
Look more.
Dot to yo. Dot to yo.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. And just before I dive into it too, I'm pretty animated, but Clive Hunt was even more. So definitely a tough act to follow. But I would just like to say it's an honor to follow him. He's a legend. He spoke about Baltimore. I collect vinyl. That's one of my most precious pieces of vinyl that I own is Tamlin's Baltimore. I believe that's his arrangement with the horn. So just big up to him on that. Yeah, we're talking about networking and collaboration. I am tuned in from Los Angeles. Sorry, I couldn't make it to Jamaica. Jamaica is like my second home or third home between Trinidad and Jamaica. I love it. And I've been working in this business. And like me, one of my first real music business interactions was 23 years ago when I was a student at the University of California, Los Angeles, and I was booking the UCLA Jazz Reggae Festival. And the first person that I ever had a real music business conversation with was Jerome Hamilton. And I spoke to him about booking an artist in the year 2002 whose vinyl I had named Sean Paul. And I brought him to play at UCLA at our Jazz Reggae Festival as a student in May of 2002. And that is when Give Me the Light was added to MTV. And it was, a proud and historic moment, certainly for myself, to have been able to recognize his talent, but also to have been able to, work, with someone so far away from me, right? And it kind of, we'll dive in more to that. But one point on that is that, look at this. Now we're here 23 years later, and it's full circle that I am here presenting. I've been asked by Jerome and Steve to present about networking and collaboration in music. And one of the points is that, networking, your networking and your ability to maintain relationships, positive relationships, is staying power for both an artist and executive in the business. So 23 years later, I still work with Jerome Hamilton. I still maintain a positive relationship with him in Headline Entertainment and Steve Wilson and Sean Paul. The song that was playing before was Urchin, who I was working with for many, many years, and Sean Paul. And we did that last year. So one of the things that I would point out is that it's important to maintain positive relationships, because you're going to see the same people that you see when you start 20 to 30 years down the road. And you want to make sure that you were easy to deal with and that people thought you were a pleasure to work with, because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're a pain in the ass, you're going to get less far. You know, so if we're talking about networking and collaboration, you know, that's one of the points that I would want to sort of hammer home. And it goes, I mean, it just goes full circle that I've had a long career in music and in the Caribbean, through Jamaica, through Trinidad with Machel Montano, with Urchin, with obviously with Steve and with Sean, and then also in the States. But you know, we're gonna dive into collaboration in a minute. But you know, that's just one thing that I would just hammer home is like, you know, as Steve said, the cliche, your network is your net worth. You can build that net worth by being cool, being positive, and being someone who people want to work with. So I think that point I hammered home. So, Steve,
right.
So, need to add to that, or
well, so one of the things when you're speaking about networking and building your network is thinking outside your immediate sphere of influence, right? Dana speaks about booking Sean at a time when he probably had to convince the people that had the cash, because he was at college and had to pull from a fund, to convince them why he wanted to use Sean Paul. And luckily he did. I went on to meet him, and he became, as they say, my man in LA, right? So whenever we were going to LA, I now had someone on the ground that I could call and say, yo, I just realized that the van I booked was too small. I need a bigger van. Or, you know, our luggage didn't come. We need some clothes. Do you have connections at any of the clothing brands that are hot in LA now that I can get clothes for Sean to wear at this photo shoot or at this show or whatever? And he was always somebody that wasn't afraid to pick up the phone and call someone else, and he also was very connected. So it was a key, and it made me realize very early on the value of a network. So at that point, I realized I'm going to strive to have that person in every city that I know I'm going to be going to repeatedly, right? As a Jamaican artist or as an executive, you know you're going to be in New York a lot. You know you're going to be in LA. You know you're going to be in Toronto. You know you're going to be in London. You know you're going to be in Miami, right? If you're lucky, there's a handful of other cities, but those you know you're going to be in. So if you don't have somebody in your Rolodex that you can immediately hit when you land or before you land and say, yo, I forgot this, or I lost that, or I need this, you're going to be in trouble, right? And it has been something that I have gone back to over and over and over in my career. And every city I go to, no matter how insignificant a person may be when you meet them, you might need them 5 minutes later. Right? And that's happened to me before, where I've met somebody and they say, hey, you know what I do? I do welding. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And I said, you know what? Let me get this person's number. And I take the number and I put it in my phone. That is my stock in trade. I have 8,000 contacts from over 120 countries in this phone, right? This is gold, right? And the reason I have that many contacts is because I don't undervalue any connection. You don't know, right? I used to manage this gentleman right here many years ago. Just recognize you. What's up, Jay? He's somebody who, when we used to work together, we always maintained a great connection. And then years and years later, it came up that I needed Jason for something else. And because we maintained a good connection, I could easily access him from my network. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. Please forgive my interruption. I need to make an acknowledgement. Ladies and gentlemen, we are thrilled to be in this building, and we are in the ministry. And please put your hands together as we welcome the Honorable Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport, the wonderful, the Honorable Babsy Olivia Grange. Hello.
I'm going to just steal 2 minutes.
Please.
And say hello. And it's good to see your face in the place. And it's really our pleasure to make the space available to Headline to do this very important workshop. And we're happy to be partners in this effort. I'm sorry I can't stay with you because, interestingly enough, I'm in the studio working on some music, which you will hear during this campaign period. But just to say that it's important that workshops and seminars and events such as these, that you make yourselves available. Because there's some of us who, we're jack of all trades, master of none in the business. We tend to do that. Some of us, we love the business and we learn through our experience. But it's important that we continue to enrich our knowledge so we can even do better at what we are doing. And we are planning to introduce courses for practitioners so you can, in fact, get certification in the areas in which you're involved, such as artist management and all those things, because, yes, yeah, because your experience counts, can be taken into account as credits, and for you to be formally certified as practitioners in the business. I want to encourage all of you, I hope all of you have signed up for the life, accident, and health insurance. And everybody sign up? I notice everybody quiet. Who has signed up? This is an opportunity that you should make use of, because it's the first in the history of Jamaica. We introduced a policy or a program like that for the persons involved in sports. Once they represent Jamaica nationally or internationally, we make sure they are covered. And so I felt it was important that a similar plan was introduced for the industry. So I want you all to utilize it, right? You can take out your card. We're going to be issuing health cards shortly. So you can, when you go to the doctor, you just take out your health card, right? And swipe it. No, we're covering all the basic things. Now, if you want to go to Tony Thwaites, then you have to pay for the additional cost, right? But outside of that, it will cover you in for your basic medical needs, including loss of limb. If your eyes get affected, you need to go to the dentist. You know, it's there for you. And in addition to that, we're going to want to ensure that you are signed up with the National Health Fund so your prescriptions are discounted. So make use of it and make use of the opportunity here today to learn that much more. I want to thank UNESCO. We have partnered with UNESCO on a number of initiatives, and we have also benefited from being members of UNESCO, where we have had inscriptions, we have had our reggae music inscribed, and just recently we had Port Royal declared a heritage site, which is going to be a major, major move for Jamaica. We're going to benefit tremendously from tourism because of Port Royal. So enjoy yourself, take in what you can, and I see you soon, Jillian, when we set the date for the handing over of the cards. Huh? Oh, 19th? Okay. So just make sure you all utilize the opportunity. Blessings. Thank you all. And I'm sorry I crashed your training.
It's a privilege.
Thank you.
good.
We are quite grateful. Thank you so much, Minister. We appreciate it.
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
It's Dana in
we
LA.
can.
I would just like to acknowledge the presence of the honorable minister and say thank you for your ongoing support of the creative arts. It's people, officials like you that sort of give me hope that that some of the issues that would have been faced by artists in the past and creators in the past will be alleviated in the future. So through programs like this and others that you're doing, I would just like to say thank you on behalf of myself as an artist, producer, executive. It's incredible that you're doing this. So thank you very much.
Just before I go, I want to tell you something I'm working on. The major record companies, they all have funds, they have royalties where they cannot find a number of Jamaicans who are entitled to those royalties. And in some instances, the artist, songwriter, they have passed on. They don't know who their estate is, and so on. So I am in discussion with the major record companies through a collaboration with Chris Blackwell and a former president of Island Records, where we're doing research to see what funds are being held out there for Jamaican practitioners, for songwriters, and for recording artists. And when we gather the information, we're going to negotiate where those funds can be put in a pool, and we structure an arrangement where we will find persons, we'll find their estate, or funds that are seen as unclaimed funds and will never be claimed, see how it can be put back into the industry to assist the development of Jamaican music. But this is something we're working on. And I just thought I'd hint, you know. There is an industry. Well, there's a sports industry, and there's a music industry, and there is a creative industry.
And they're
So
all
you have
represented
different
by the ministry.
sectors
Right.
in the industry. All right? And they all relate. They all relate.
Right.
All right?
So regrettably, we cannot do Q&A at this time, but we do thank the minister, certainly. If you want to say anything else, that's fine. I'm just letting us know that we actually went in. You know how we are grateful. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much.
Good.
All right. Bye.
Thank you, Minister.
Before Steve speaks, I will also acknowledge the head of the Entertainment Advisory Board, Mr. Howard McIntosh, that's also joining us. And we thank everyone at the ministry for their support. Again, you have a tough act to follow, Steve, but we picked you for the job because you're the right man for it. Dana, Steve, back to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So 2 hard acts to follow.
Luckily, Steve started also as a hype man for Sean as well. So a little known fact that he was the DJ, the hype man, the road manager. So.
That's right. That's right. Jobs which luckily I've shedded by building my network. Saw that segue? All right.
Correct.
So first off, I just want to big up the Ministry of Culture and the minister herself and Howard McIntosh and Headline, UNESCO, UE, and CARICOM for creating this forum, because when we talk about networking and collaboration, this exactly is what we need more of, right? This is one of my big soapboxes I like to stand on when in Jamaica, is that we don't have an industry. We have a group of people who create that don't speak to each other, right? And I can guarantee you that there's contacts in my Rolodex that I'm not using that somebody in this room desperately needs. And I don't know that because I don't get to talk to y'all. And you guys don't have access to me, right? And so that is something we need to change. And I'm going to even go as far as to suggest that we should have think tanks and brainstorming sessions and, round tables of master conversations where our open forum, and we pick a topic, 1 per month or 1 per week. That would be a dream, but 1 per month where we all get together and we come and we sit down and we collaborate and we communicate and we network, right? Because I know there's network There's networks that you guys are plugged into right now that I could use, but I don't know that you know those people, right? So that's a major part and a major step that they've done in something that we've not had before, or certainly not had in a very long time, that I'd love to see continue. And I think everybody in here feels the same way. And then continuing on that is the same thing with the reason why I'm very happy CARICOM is involved is that these should be cross-Caribbean conversations as well, right? So one of the great things about me and Dana's relationship is that when he started working with Machel Montano and I was working with Sean, we both knew Major Lazer, Diplo and Major Lazer from other contacts and through his network in LA and my network in international touring. And when they wanted to put a song together, which would have a sort of soca dancehall bridge that met that same Major Lazer-esque, what we just said, dance music, so it basically bridged 3 different categories, right? And Sean was selected, Machel was selected, and then Major Lazer did the production, and we went and we shot that video at Notting Hill Carnival in London, which again is another part, a major part of our network. And how many views does that video have, do you know?
Just the official music, between the official music video and the art track, it's like over 12 million, and then there's I don't even know how many, but probably 20 million views and streams total, right. for a dancehall soca crossover from
right. All in all, a massive success, and one that would never have happened without cross-Caribbean collaboration, right? Which again is something that what we do in the Caribbean is we tend to copy paste or recreate our own version of something that we've seen work somewhere else, right? So like one of my little arguments about Carnival in Jamaica Carnivals is not Jamaican enough. I would love it to be a little bit more Jamaican. Yes, Trinidad has done great things and there are promoters coming here and taking from their successes and applying them here, but still putting a little bit of our personality into it is something I'd like to see more of. And that will only happen with networking and collaboration, right?
Yeah, and can you see my screen? Can anybody see my screen right now?
Can you full screen it? There you go.
You see it?
So this is a casual. Dana and I started putting this together. I said, we're going to do this thing, and I want to talk about collaboration. And one thing that everybody knows about Sean Paul is he's been absolutely massive at collaborating. Now, I myself didn't even realize the level of which he had collaborated in the time we've been together. So this is a partial, I'm going to stress that, a partial list of the videos, so not even necessarily the songs, the videos that have been, that Sean has collaborated on that have had some amount of success, right? And it's, what is that, 111?
115.
150.
Yeah.
And it's so not an entire list, right?
Right. And I would chime in here to just kind of, to say that very few artists have this type of staying power. Sean is on his 3rd decade of hits, right? And so, part of it, in my estimation, is his ability to understand that collaboration is key, right?
Absolutely.
So, he's been able to build, they've been to 120 countries or more, right? And that's due in part to the fact that Sean has understood that, okay, so Clean Bandit, for example, right? That song, which is right here, that video has 3 billion views.
There's not billion with a B.
3 billion views on YouTube, right? And so Sean was able to see that Anne-Marie and Clean Bandit had a different audience than him. They were able to see that Sean had, that Sean had his own audience, right? So a lot of one of the fastest ways to grow your audience size is by getting in front of someone else's audience. And Sean and Steve and Jules and Jerome and team have been just pros at that, and sort of made a blueprint for it throughout any genre of music, let alone reggae and Caribbean music, right? And so, one of the things that I would stress is that, it might seem like it's crazy, but it's obviously possible. If like Sean was able to, collaborate with a sort of dance house music outfit, from England called Clean Bandit on something that sounds nothing like dancehall and nothing like reggae, and create something that got 3 billion views on YouTube, anything is possible, right? And I would just encourage people that like to and now that with Instagram, it's easier than ever to like DM someone. If you like someone's music, start with the DM on Instagram, right? Or find their email on their Instagram and reach out.
Access has never been higher than it is right now.
Correct. There's total disintermediation. As an artist, you can reach your fans. As an artist, you can reach other artists. You don't need a record label necessarily, or a distributor, or a publicist or manager. You can do it on your own, right? Obviously, as you get those other people around you, which is important to have as your career develops, you can lean on them. But at the beginning, you can do it on your own. And so, to segue into like something more practical now, and it's more like sort of data related. I've always been able to keep on top of like data and digital marketing and everything. And I kind of want to highlight right now something that's very big and very relevant in the business. And that is the influence of Instagram and TikTok on music marketing, artist development, executive development. They have built-in collaboration tools now, right? Arguably, TikTok is the most important platform for promoting music in the world right now. If you get a massive hit on TikTok, you're going to have a massive hit, right? So Urchin had a big hit last year with, we talk about collaboration, he's another super, super genius collaborator. So he had a song with Rauw Alejandro, who's from Puerto Rico, and Ira Star, who's from Nigeria. The song is called Santa. So that's Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and Nigeria on a song. It went big on TikTok. And to date, it has over 1 billion streams. Just on Spotify alone, since April of 24, it has over 720 million streams, right?
Sorry, Dana, I just want to cut you for a sec. This happens sometimes where we, as executives, might talk beyond where you guys are in the industry. And I think it's important to kind of shore up the 0 to 60. I've had a lot of conversations with artists who have multiple songs out, and I say to them, oh, so put this on your TikTok, and they're like, well, I don't have a TikTok yet. And I'm like, but then you're not participating as an artist. No, here's the reality. I know artists will say things like, well, I don't feel like that's my personality, or I don't feel like that's something I feel comfortable doing. And unfortunately, the reality is there is no more musician without celebrity. That doesn't exist anymore. That existed back in the day. There are very few artists who can have success without having that social media access. Now, here's the good news. Whatever your personality is, you can find an interesting angle about it to create yourself on social media to be interesting. But even if you're not hitting big views and big follower numbers, the real reason you're on social media is exactly what Dana is talking about, which is to collaborate, to reach out to people. It is so hard when you meet an artist and you say, well, who are you? What do you do? Why should I be interested? And you're trying to explain it to me in terms that you've chosen that may not be perfect. Whereas if I could just say, show me your TikTok or show me your Instagram, and I can look at it, and in 20 seconds I can be like, okay, I get it. I understand who you are, understand where you're from, understand your musical format, understand what your look is, your vibe is. So much about you has now been explained to me in a split second, and it makes it easier to network because I now understand what do I need from this person, or do I need anything from this person? And you in this room all do the same thing. If I said to everybody in here right now, I have an artist that wants to collaborate with you from Colombia, the first question you're going to ask me is, can I see their Spotify? Can I see their YouTube? Can I see their Instagram? Because you want to gauge what their numbers are, where the influence is, and does it make sense? Is it worth your while, right? So, sorry, Dana, continue.
Yeah, no, all good. And just to like a practical example, like right now, one of the biggest songs of the summer in any genre of music is from a Jamaican artist producer and featuring Jamaican artists, and that's Shake It to the Max, right? And I had a conversation with Silent Addy, the producer of that song, yesterday about it. I told him I was having this, and I wanted to get a little bit of insight from him about how the power of networking and collaboration behind that song. And before I dive into the story, I hope you can still see my screen, but this is a TikTok video that kind of pushed this one over the edge. And to date, I think, and this is probably, outdated, the TikTok dance challenge has over 2.5 million user generated views. Generated videos.
Yeah.
2.5 million people have made a video with Shake It to the Max. And if you really think about it, if you're on the platform just as a user, that's a collaboration. You're collaborating with the song. So you're like a fan and you're doing a video and you're attaching yourself to the song. In my mind, that is a collaboration with the music, right?
You're collaborating to create virality.
Correct. And this is like a key song, and it's super relevant because this song is huge right now. And so an interesting, anecdote about the song is, it speaks to what we're talking about, which is networking and collaboration. And I'll just give it quickly, which, Addy told me yesterday, which I actually didn't know, is that he produced the song in Miami with Marley, who you see on the screen now, who's Ghanaian American, and it was just featuring her. It somehow leaked and got on TikTok and started to have a moment on Jamaican TikTok. And people called Addy and told him that. And he said to himself, and this is something that I've done very well with in my career, is knowing when and where to be somewhere. So he said to himself, you know what? I need to go to Jamaica and touch down on the ground and go in the dance and go in the studio and go to radio and go to check, talk to promoters, talk to artists, talk to producers, and find out if it's really as big as people are saying it is. And if so, who is the hottest artist right now that fits this song that I can get on it? So he goes down Jamaica after he sees this popping a bit, the original with just Marley on it, right? And he sees that Skilly Bang is like hot in the streets, and he links Skilly Bang. And he says, "Yo, Skilly, like I would love to get you on the remix of this song." So Skilly said, "All right, cool, yeah. Well, let me think about it." Blah blah blah. They go out to a dance that night, or one of those nights, right? And the song comes on, and the crew that they're with hears the song, and they're like, "Yo," and they see the reaction there, and they in person, and they're like, "Yo," they see the people reacting to him, being like, "Yo, this is our track." And Skilly's like, let's go record this thing after this.
Right place, right time.
Right place, but it was networking, and it was intentional. He intentionally put himself in the right place. So I'm encouraging everybody. And part of the reason I'm from California, but I moved to Trinidad and I released over 3,000 songs in the last 5 years, mostly soca. And the reason people trust me and the reason I'm able to convince people to work with me is because I'm there and they see me there. I go to Jamaica, I go to Sumfest, I go in the studio. I'm there, and I understand, and that allows them to see me, and they understand that I care about this music. I'm not in it for the dollar. I mean, sure, I love to make money, and it is a business, but I actually care about it. And so, and then also for me, like Addy, you're able to see what is actually popular and what is actually reacting. And and so you need to really still, even though you could see it online, it still helps to see it in person, right? And so again, that just speaks to like the power of collaboration and networking, right? And then, this song has like also like I just made this kind of research report on it, but this song, look at the cover of it, right? That's a total collaboration. Skilly Bang, Marley, Shensia, Silent Addy. That's 4 people, and that's 4 different sets of audiences promoting one thing. So it's I guess as they say, it takes a village or whatever. It's kind of like really.
Well, what's interesting about this song in particular, also, Dana, is it speaks to further of what you're saying, which is, I always say, the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? And that it was what applies to being in the right place at the right time. Is not something that happens by accident. If you're always home, then your likelihood of being in the right place at the right time is greatly reduced, right? You're in this room, that means you're in the right place at the right time. But you've intentionally put yourself here to network, to learn, right? So same thing, showing up at the dance, when you know Skilly is there, when you know your song is hot enough that when you play it, you're going to get that reaction. It's a perfect storm moment, right? And so importance of having your ear to the street, knowing where to show up, knowing when to show up, knowing how to show up, knowing who on your team to have around you when that happens, because I can guarantee you, Addy made sure you had 4 girls there that as soon as the song play, them all start jump up and say, yo, this is the hottest thing, and them start to the dance, and then immediately Skill is like, I can't be left out of this, right? So you've created a perfect networking moment. Now, interestingly, like I said on this song, is Sean heard the song, And then Sean was like, well, this song is hot. I want to get on the song. And because Sean and Addy have a good relationship, and me and Addy have a good relationship, reached out to Addy, and Sean ended up with his own remix of this, and Shaggy also did a similar thing. So it's important, as you see, two people with a very long careers know when to show up on something and know when to gauge something is hot. Now, the other side of the coin of that is knowing when something is about to get hot, or believing and being able to spot trends and watch and see things when they're rising. Now, if Dana would go back to that collaboration list, one of my partners in Sean's management is Jules Dougal, who has been absolutely instrumental in picking and creating some of these collaborations. One of which is the Sia, Cheap Thrills, which was a massive hit. Everybody knows about that one. Another one was Dua Lipa, who when we picked Dua Lipa to do that song, No Lie, she had 40,000 followers on Instagram. Now, anybody knows who Dua Lipa is, go look now. All right, it's a hell of a lot more than that, right? So we got her on the way up, and she helped carry the song, again, to an audience that she was already going to be introduced to. So again, it comes back to the point of having somebody in your network who can say to you, this artist is rising, this is the right time to catch them. In 2 months, you're going to call this person, and they won't answer your call. But right now, they'll answer your call because of where they're at and where you're at. So it's important to catch someone, stars crossing, right? Third story on that is the Clean Bandit song that Dana spoke about earlier. The reason Sean was in the studio with Clean Bandit was that same Jules Dougal had set up a recording session for us to go and record with them for our own music, for Sean's own music. And while we're there, they said, hey, I know this is your session, but would you mind if we played your song? No, he could have easily said, no, I don't want to hear any of your music. I'm here to make my music. He didn't. He said, okay, let me hear. Let me be open to networking and collaboration and hear what it is you want to play me. They played that song, and that's the only song from that session that ever came out. Right? So imagine if you had shut that down, and that would have been wasted time, right? And you've missed out this massive opportunity. So again, it just speaks to the value of knowing when, where, who, how, having your whole, it's always easier to have 10 people looking for opportunities for you than you looking for opportunities for you. So if you have somebody in London, you have somebody in New York, you have somebody in soca, you have somebody in Afrobeat, and they're all looking for opportunities for you, you're obviously going to have a lot more chances of success, right? Following on to that is that early on in Sean's career, me, Jerome Hamilton, and Sean sat down, and Jerome said, look, I want to show you something. We're getting requests from some pretty far away places, some places that artists have not gone, some places that very few artists have been to. And the question is this something you want to pursue? And it might end up with some questionable shows and some sketchy promoters, but we'll be the first person to ever go there from Jamaica. Or do you want to just play it safe and stay color within the lines? Sean's response was overwhelmingly, I want to go out there and wave the flag. I want to wave the flag of reggae and dancehall, and I want to go everywhere. Now, luckily for me, I had a good friend in Robert Livingston at the time who was managing Shaggy, and a lot of these countries Shaggy had been to, and he'd been the only person who's ever been there. And I could call Robert, and he would take my call, because that's a big part of networking is, yes, I have 8,000 numbers in my phone, but will 8,000 people answer when I call? So and that's another thing is keeping your contacts refreshed. Sometimes you reach out to people, you just say, hey, how you doing? What you working on? Just to make sure that Clive Hunt remembers who Steve Urchin is, right? So that's an important note as well. And when I called Robert and I said, yo, we got an offer in this place. He said, the promoter is this person, right? And I said, yeah. He said, yeah, that's who called us. Don't go there with that person. Right? And invariably, he was right every single time. And he would say, wait till this person calls you. Because when that person calls you, it's going to mean that your saturation in that market is at the right level. This first person is calling you to try and first that guy, but he's not set up properly. So again, you see the importance of your network is not just to connect you with people, but to connect you with the right people at the right time, right? Because there's nothing worse than being connected to the wrong person. I don't know if you've heard some of those stories of early reggae artists going to, Kai would have heard some of those stories, artists being relieved of their passports and not being able to leave countries until they've done what the promoter asked, right? So very important to make sure that your network is not only expansive, but verifiable, right? Who's there now?
N-
Is there?
Hello?
Okay. Yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I just stopped sharing the screen, but and I think one thing I wanted to say was that it's important also that you need to reach out to people and come up with a strategy for collaboration, but also when people reach out to you, to make sure that you're willing to show up and support for them.
Yes.
Right? I've learned a lot and I've gained a lot by being of service to people. And as you go along in the business and you start to have leverage, right? This is the music business. It's a business primarily of leverage, right? You should not really throw your weight around, but you should help others using your weight. And I feel like because there's always another level that you're going to be, that you're going to aspire to reach to. And you need to make sure that you have time for those below you because those above you probably helped you, right? And so if you help them, invariably that will help you get to the next level as well, right? And so that's one of the things that I didn't always understand that, right? But when I did understand that, my career and my ability to work with artists and create music and monetize music and grow audiences kind of really started to grow. And the other thing I'll say about that is that's like a real life thing, but from a data perspective, it's another thing, right? And most of these platforms that we're talking about TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. Those are algorithmically driven, right? So there is, a formula on the back end, right, that drives more people to your content, the more that it gets shared, the more that it gets engaged with, the more that people, basically sharing, like the more that people watch and share and listen and save your music, you will grow, right? People, then the algorithms will push listeners and viewers to your content and you'll start to own that category, whatever it is. So that brings in the importance of like metadata, right? So, you want to make sure everything is properly like quote unquote optimized, which you can research. But what I'm trying to get at is that like it snowballs. It's very hard to get from zero, and this is my theory. It's very hard to get from 0 to 10,000 followers. And it's very and then from 10,000 to 20,000, it kind of gets easier because of the way the algorithm works over time, right? And so if you can get to that level, like do whatever you can to press the gas, right? Because you've already sort of made it. You've proven yourself to a certain extent that you have something that people care about, right? And so then, use your network, use the collaboration, do whatever you can to try to get in front of as many people as possible. But again, when people ask you, you got to return the favor, right? And more often than not, that person who's asking you is probably on their way up too. They're smart enough to understand that they need to ask you for something.
Exactly.
So that's generally those are the people that are very successful anyways, right? So it's talking about Steve, like what Steve said about like the inflection point, I call it, right? Finding people, Jules very, very good at finding people at the inflection point, right before they're about to hit the hockey stick growth. So imagine when you're open and you show up for people and they're about to hit that, they're going to remember you. And algorithmically speaking, when they get that shake it to the max moment and you have a song that's attached to that same artist, your stuff's going to like skyrocket as well.
Yeah.
So that's like, yep.
I just want to jump in on that right there because I do every Wednesday a night called Super Heavy Wednesdays at Django's. Now, I started that night with my partner, Fahrenheit, Izzy, 5 years ago because two reasons. One, we need more platforms for live music in Kingston. I'm always embarrassed when tourists come here and say to me, where can I go and see a live reggae band tonight? And my answer is St. Martin or Barbados because not here, right? That's embarrassing. So I started it for that reason. But the second reason and the bigger reason for me was I wanted to create a networking space for us. Everybody here. And I know I've seen a bunch of faces here who have performed, who have attended, who have been there. And my one massive complaint that I always come back to is somebody comes and performs this week, right? And they do not come back next week to watch the performer who's performing that week. You want everybody to show up for you, but you are not willing to show up or not interested enough or not invested enough to show up for everybody else. That's not networking. That's not collaboration, right? And I don't know where it comes from in our culture, but we have this thing that if I discover some secret way of making my song go viral, I come over here and I hide behind this podium. And I say, yeah, I'm find it. And I'm not showing no one. And I'm not telling anybody. I have the code and I'm keeping the code. But guess what? I only have a piece of the code. And you have a next piece, and him have a next piece, and she have a next piece. And if we come together, we have Optimus Prime. Right? Because a rising tide raises all ships. And what the other thing it does is when I find an edge, if I share my edge, that forces me to go and find another edge. And then another edge and another, and that's how we ratchet up. Exactly, but them now share the link. Right? Me have a guy in London, and him a book crazy show, and him a do collaboration and a pay artist, but me not bust nobody else on it. It's what Dana just spoke about. You want to be able to reach out to people and them to share with you, but you're not doing the same for others. So I will stand up here and say that if I'm in Jamaica, I'm at Django's at Super Heavy every Wednesday, and my ears are open, and my conversation is free, and right down here, Belmont Road, and coincidentally, tonight is Wednesday. So come tonight. This is not a shameless plug, sort of maybe a little bit.
Free drinks on Steve.
Yes,
Come through, collaborate, network. It's free entry. There's no charge for entry. And I did that on purpose as well, because when an artist come and perform and they're new, I don't want nobody to come and say, that wasn't good and I feel like I never get my money worth. You never pay. Shut up and get entertained and give constructive feedback. This is a gentleman right here who has used that platform, and I love how he uses it, and he comes back and he supports, right? And there are a couple of people in this room who I can say the same for, and I encourage everybody to do that and to let us create a spirit of collaboration and networking within in our industry.
Well said.
Show up, bro.
Well said. Please give Steve and Dana a round of applause.
Thank you.
I'm here so busy making notes, but I also have some questions from those online. Excellent. And you should know that we have persons online from right across the Caribbean, not just persons in Jamaica. I didn't get the name of the person with the first question, but the question is, how was Jamaica able to make reggae into a specific genre while other Caribbean music are still identified as world music?
Wow. That one is an interesting one.
I'm
going to have to say a big part of that, I think, has to do with a very interesting thing that I learned when I was coming up in the music business, which is that, especially back in the day, the coolest guy on any street in any city in the world was always a Jamaican, right? So when somebody wanted to find what was the new edgy cool thing, they would go to that person. And when that person said, Cool Herc, New York City, 1973, said, let's find a break on this record, and invented hip-hop music. That's a Jamaican that did that, in case you didn't know. And that has a lot to do with it, is that we can spot trends and create trends. And a lot of the time, I mean, everybody here can attest to this. When you could be sitting on a bench in an airport and see somebody 100 yards away, and it don't matter what color, creed, nothing. You can say, see a yard there? Why? There's a swagger, right? And I'm not saying that the rest of the Caribbean do have swagger. I'm saying maybe ours is a little different. That's part of it. The other part of it, I think, has a lot to do with what Chris Blackwell did with Bob Marley, which is...
Yeah, I was going to say Bob Marley.
Yes. He took what was inherently great music and said, this needs one more little thing to make it identifiable and understandable to rock fans. And he did that. And he brought in a guitar player who played overdubs and all the Bob Marley stuff. And that was a big part of the success, right? And ever since then, when somebody like Bob Marley opened the door for you, the door is wide open, right?
Yes, thank you. That was a rough question. I wasn't even sure how to answer that one. Before I take questions from the floor, the next question that I have from online is an equally difficult question. I feel like they waited for you for all the hard questions. The question is there a website where we can find all of the weekly events in Kingston to book up-and-coming artists, and who are the booking agents that represent them?
I smell opportunities.
Wow.
I smell opportunities.
Yeah,
I think we have there's Jamaicans.com used to do that.
Yes.
There is a what's on Jamaica or what's popping Jamaica, something like that. There is an Instagram, but they're not fully, up to date and comprehensive. And a lot of the reason for that is that we here in this room are not talking to each other. If I said today, I'm going to start that website, me and Headline are going to start that website, we're going to start that Instagram page, but we're relying on you guys to tell us what's happening every single night. It's difficult.
Yes,
right?
it is. And since we're in the building, I'm going to say that the ministry can perhaps, with the e-registry, make use of that. So, Mr. McIntosh, I'm going to send you that note for us to follow up on that. That said, with the questions online, we have questions in the room. You have a question? You have a question or a statement? You sure it's a question? All right. Question it is. One moment.
What can we do about the ministry like we're in the ministry building right now, right? So what can we do towards the artists the artists in Jamaica? What can we do about getting them into a collective agency? Like seriously.
You mean like a registry?
It's like how you have Jacob for composers and all of that. For artists, there's no one that is really looking out for the development of the artists.
I remember, and this is going to go back a minute, but I would say probably 20 years ago, Jampro used to have a registry, and they actually did a booklet that people could actually get a printed copy of, and you could open it and it would say, here's, vetted promoters, here's vetted guitar players, here's vetted saxophone players, vetted vocalists, vetted festivals, here's and venues, and I don't know if that exists. I'm not speaking.
They had put it online, but I don't think it's been
online,
updated.
but I don't think it's been updated.
Right.
So I think that is something that if we were to reinvigorate, would be fantastic, because I do agree with you 100%, because I think that there's a thing called Reggae Festival Guide that's online, and that has like all the reggae festivals around Earth, or maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. But most of them are inaccessible to us artists, and also when they're looking for a new artist to book, let's say they want somebody from Jamaica, they don't know where to find us.
Urchin,
right?
I hate to interrupt, but the
Sorry.
ministry does have a response to that question, so
Okay.
we're going to have Gillian
Love to
McDaniel
have it.
provide that information.
Okay, hi, afternoon again. Okay, so you say I ran up the stairs because I needed to answer that question. Okay, so during COVID, actually, we tried via the registry and through the COVID granting process to actually have more persons join industry associations. Because the truth of the matter is that advocacy, sorry, I'm panting because I ran. Advocacy for any industry comes by collaboration and meeting together as an industry association. That is what drives advocacy and lobbying. And so we tried during that COVID granting process to have persons joining the industry associations through the registry. It worked for a bit, and then it didn't. But even now with the National Registry of Entertainment and Creative Industries Practitioners, that has over 4,500 persons registered, the insurance program, whether it's life, health, personal accident, or whatever kind of granting or visa attestations, whatever, we recommend that persons become part of an industry association so that you can properly lobby and advocate to government, so that we are working on your interests, not what government thinks is your interest, but what your interests really are. And so we have been doing that. And we, again, encourage persons to join industry associations? Because I think that's the question you're asking. Correct. Yeah. And for persons who are on the registry, for example, they would have gotten some notes about this meeting. You didn't get any? Well, that's our bad if you didn't. But we know we sent out information. The same is true for e-registry live. The same is true for the insurance. All of these things we send out on the registry. But if persons are not a part of the registry, and everyone has a right not to sign up on the registry unless they want a benefit. But any benefit that you're seeking from government in relation to culture and the creative industries and entertainment, the floor for us is that you must be registered on the registry. So if you're coming for grant funding, for sponsorship on any activity, you must be registered. And so that is how we are trying to encourage that kind of industry collaboration. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Gillian McDaniel from the ministry. If I may
Awesome.
add, yes, to your point, Steve, about having a piece of the puzzle. You have a piece, I have a piece, she have a piece. I got an email, you didn't get the email, but did I pick up the phone and call and say, hey, my friend, this is happening?
That's actually a great question. How many people in here, when you found out about this, shared it with your network? All right, should be every single hand. That's the truth, right?
I have another question.
I have a question. Sorry, I have a question. How many people saw my ad? Just
Yes, how many people saw Dana's post? Hands are going up all over the place, Dana.
It's crazy. So just to give you an idea, like I just did that on my own as like almost like a test, but like, you know, that thing got 66,000 views and I paid $50 US for that.
Yes, that's a lot of reach.
That's bang for buck.
Yes.
Just yeah. So and I honestly I did it through myself through my Instagram account on my phone. So anybody could do it.
Anybody.
So
can
just
do
practically speaking, that kind of thing is possible too.
Okay.
But sorry to cut you off.
I need to digress for just a moment to say, boy, Dana, your framing and your bouquet effect and your background is amazing. It's not often that we go to workshops and the presenter looks quite that good. So I had to bring you up on that one. The question is, how can a musician who wants to be a solo act on an international level accomplish that in today's space? Another big question for you, Steve. I know, they're just bombarding
That person needs to message me and get some consultation hours in or something. Because
No problem.
That's a
I could answer
one.
too. Steve, you go, but I have a good idea
Go
about
ahead,
that
Dana.
too. Well, for me, it's content. I have had a lot of success with artists who put out what I call low cost, time commitment, high volume content. Like these algorithms that I spoke about, they favor consistency. They favor personalized content. As I just mentioned, I made this video. It cost me nothing. I just put my phone to my face. It was like, hey, I'm appearing at this music mastery course. Cost nothing. Come up with a robust content strategy that's not going to break the bank and stick with that strategy for 18 to 24 months. And it's hard. And what I would also say is find your team, and that's probably a manager, distributor, right? A distribution partner. There's a lot of distribution and label options out there now. You can use any one of them, but stick to one and stay with them for a while, because if you end up jumping around, you kind of have to restart your story. I guess what I'm getting at is like, tell your story, tell it often, make sure that it's optimized, and through that, over time, you can build up your audience and reach that snowball effect. And you can do that from anywhere in the world, right? And I guarantee you, like I said, when you have that shake it to the max moment, when you have that Sean Paul clean bandit moment, then you're going to be international. And that comes through years and years of consistent content. Addie's been at this thing for over 10 years, DJing, making Instagram content, hosting parties. Sean has been doing shows and content piece after content piece and content piece. But the good thing is that it's cheaper and easier than ever to reach that status. That would be I really believe that. So
cheaper and easier than ever.
yeah, I think so. Because
Another great thing about all those platforms that you speak about, Dana, is how much, like, and this is something that I always impress on artists and executives as well, is utilize the back end, right, which is the data. A lot of people, a lot of artists I know, yes, you have Spotify, but are you on Spotify for artists? Do you have that app? Because if you're not, you're missing out. Because what you can look
Absolutely.
you can look into that and it will tell you, here's the top cities where your song is being streamed. Here's the top countries where people are, where your fans are from. So you know how to now point your content. So for example, if Bensley puts out a song and that song starts to react in, pick a country, right? You know, somewhere he didn't expect it to react in, all of a sudden he's massive in Indonesia, he had no idea. He goes on his Spotify for Arts and he sees that, he can now make a piece of content, maybe learn a phrase or two in Indonesian, and he drop that in his content and put the flag up and be like, yo, shout out to my Indonesian fans. By the next month, he's getting a call from Indonesia for a show.
Yeah,
Right?
there's another thing called trend jacking, right? So TikTok, they have something called the TikTok Creator Center. I believe that's what it's called. You can go on there and you see the charts of like the trending songs and the trending hashtags and the trending creators on TikTok. So a very practical thing to do is go and see what songs are trending, what challenges, dance challenges are going, and create content around that. And it's called trend jacking. So you're kind of plugging into a system that was already built by other users and other fans, and that people are actually looking for content for. They're doom scrolling. If you get into that For You page, like on TikTok, that's like the big thing, the For You page.
And ride the wave. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Exactly,
Dana.
ride
Thank you,
the
Steve.
wave. Yeah.
I have 2 more questions for you before we wrap because it is 3:42 and we have 2 questions for Steve and Dana.
Good night, good evening. Sir Flexas here. Sir Flexas, the artist who used to manage by the most honorable Oliver Babsy Grange once. Sir Flexas, the artist who used to act in the famous Royal Palm Estate once. From earlier on, we've been speaking about streaming, marketing, how to do these things. I think everybody in the audience are doing it. But I'm mostly focusing on numbers. Ever all of these function ago? Numbers and streaming. So, the question I'm going to ask you now, I can answer it myself as an artist, but I want to answer it. Being as I want to focus on streaming, the 2 days youth, them want the streaming and people are looking at the numbers. They're not get the chance to be a giant. So, give me the answer. What 2 days youth supposed to do? We are stream all over the world to be a giant, like how the Shabbat rise up and be a giant, the Buju Banton, the Bounty Killer, the Beanie Man, the Elephant, where be a giant and push Jamaica up, so. Everyone who doing the streaming, they're bringing dancehall reggae down there, so. So give me the answer what they should do, because you've been speaking about streaming and numbers. And I have the answer, but I want you to answer it.
I mean,
I feel like if you have the answer, you should give it to us. Because as an artist manager, I've been trying to figure that out for about 20, 30 years. There is no one answer to that. There is a perfect storm. A lot of it is what Dana talks about, being consistent with your content, having a release strategy that matches your content strategy. It don't make sense that you're out there doing content every week, and you have nothing to sell. Right? That means you're all advertising, no product. You got to have a product, you got to have a marketing plan, you got to have a strategy. Go ahead.
All right. Here the answer now. Teach Jamaican artists, radio, television, to bust the right song, right talent, we can perform, energy, marketing strategy, image. It's a full package you have to be a giant. All who be a giant, a full package. Check everybody who radio boss, IRFM them, all of them 90s, they be a giant. The one who streaming now, they cannot get to be a giant because somebody go YouTube and tip money on YouTube and they make him get enough number. That don't make him be a bad artist. So you still need to go back to the radio and television, national radio, national TV. That's all your way to find enough giant back in Jamaica. Like Shabba, Buju, Bounty, Beanie, Elephant.
Thank you very much for that. So I did say one last question, but I'm going to do 2. I'm going to give the lovely lady from Kingston Creative the final floor question, and then I'm going to close with Howard McIntosh.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
I was going to say I want to hear what his question
and
is.
then we'll have the networking down the road. Okay.
Hi, Taylor from Kingston Creative here. Hi, Steve. What's up? You know I'll see you later at Janga's anyways. So it would be remiss of me. I'm sorry, I'm going to make a quick statement because the question was asked about reggae in the 80s and 90s and how exactly it was propagated and the marketing. As a marketing girl, it would be remiss of me. Marketing is everything. You are marketing a product. Chris Blackwell was serious about his product. Every time you think you see every photo there is to see a Bob Marley one next one come out. I don't know where the photographer was hiding. You know, if him up in a tree, on the ground, him get the picture. There are better pictures of Bob Marley than pictures I'm seeing of artists now in 2025. I don't know how that is possible, but it is absolutely true. So he was serious about his product, which is Bob Marley, and he was serious about the marketing, which is the marketing Jamaican culture. Yeah. And that is why Jamaican culture is, and reggae is currently a UNESCO World Heritage. Yes. Reggae is a World Heritage. You know, understand the power that we have as a people when it comes to a tangible heritage. But the question I actually had regarding streaming is that we're talking a lot about numbers, and I do think a lot of artists don't really understand exactly the payout when it comes to streaming. So is there any resource that you can direct us to, or if you can give us just a brief as to the payout for streaming, exactly how much streams per count as a view, etc., because I don't think that they really understand that.
That is definitely Dana's area of expertise.
Yeah,
Dana,
I mean, look,
that one.
That's like a whole hour plus on its own, right? But basically the answer is that there's no set rate because streams that are advertising supported, so like say on Spotify, I have an account that is free. It's supported by ads. I have to listen to ads. That generates a different royalty than a stream that happens from somebody who is a subscriber. Now, a subscription in the United States costs different than a subscription in Jamaica, and an advertisement that's paid by an advertiser in the States costs different than the number in Jamaica. So it depends on what type of stream it is. It depends on where the stream happened, and so there's no real exact answer. But I mean, I can estimate based on what I've put out thousands of songs. Like it's about $3,000 per million streams, give or take, on Spotify, and about 5,000 to 7,000 on Apple Music. And you can just Google that and see a lot of people discussing those numbers. But if anyone says they're going to give you the exact number, it's not true. Right. And there's just a lot of factors that go into it. But and YouTube is even more difficult to calculate. But, when you start getting into the tens of millions of streams on Spotify and on Apple Music, you're starting to have, I'd say, like a real business in streaming. Right. Unfortunately, in Jamaica and in Trinidad, views on YouTube pay very little. And so I would actually, encourage people that while they love to use YouTube, and I love YouTube as it's a marketing platform, use Spotify and use Apple Music, because those actually pay a higher rate in territories like Jamaica and in Trinidad. And Trinidad, in fact, is what they call a non-monetized territory. So if you get 10 million views on your video in Trinidad, you get $0. Unfortunately. And so it's very complex. There are probably resources online. There's a site called Ari's Take, ARIS, Ari's Take. He has a music business podcast. He does a lot of this sort of analysis. He also goes through the different distribution companies and kind of gives the pros and cons of each. So he's a good resource, a reliable resource. There's also the music industry Bible is called All You Need to Know About the Music Business. I have a copy of it on my office wall here by Donald Passman, right? And it's updated all the time. So those are good resources. But yeah, if someone tells you, oh, it's $5 per view on YouTube, it's like, no, it's not. That's not correct. It's a very complex system.
Interestingly, Dana, somebody here just shouted out to me that terrestrial radio still pays more than for one play on terrestrial radio. Still
Yeah, one play on Sirius XM can pay $40.
Pays $40 for one play. So again,
radio is not
Sirius,
dead.
Sirius, yeah. and regular radio as well. So that is something that comes to our gentleman's point in the back, which is that radio is still very powerful and puts money in artists' pockets.
Yes.
What it also speaks to is that we need to make sure that as a genre and as a country and as a people, as a region, where we have those radio stations that were programmed by people from our industry, right? Which we have very few of, unfortunately.
Yes.
And we need to have more of that so that will push up the amount of content. That's what Latin music has been able to successfully do, right?
Thank you so much, Steve and Dana. I will close the floor with Howard McIntosh. Mr. McIntosh. Thank you.
Blessings, everyone. Blessings.
Blessings.
I first want to ask everyone to just give Headline Entertainment and the team a big round of applause.
Bop, 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 bop.
Actually, I was supposed to be one of the presenters today, but just coming in and had to make it to join. My presentation was going to be about link up. I heard Brethren said earlier that you have to link up, and it was focused on network and collaboration. The fact that you're here today is an investment that you're making in yourself, and you need to continue to make that investment. This music business has more entrepreneurs than every other sector in Jamaica, because everybody here is mostly self-made. You can't go to the bank and get no money that easy. You don't have no grants that you can get normally. So you have more entrepreneurs in the music business than any other sector. And I stand to be contradicted on that. You see, this network thing that you're Steve and Dana and everybody pushing, it's a serious thing. Your network is your distribution. You must focus on your network and your collaboration. That is your brand. That is how you're going to get more visible. You have to make it a part of your business model. You have to come to events like this. You have to join, brethren, you have to join organizations, whether it's the Jamaica Federation of Musicians, whether it's the Jamaican Association of Vintage Artists, whether or not it's Jams, whether or not it's Jacobs, whether it's Jaria. You must join these organizations and the international ones as well, because that's how you're really going to get your network and your collaboration going. I want to encourage you to spread the words. Don't just come to this workshop and then keep it to yourself. You need to pass on the message and encourage more. As you heard the minister say earlier, the plan is to try and do more. Well, she have an election thing to deal with. But the plan is to really do more of these, because we don't get together enough as an industry. We don't get together enough and just talk about the things that we do need to talk about and hear from people like Dana, Steve, and all the other great presenters that you had. But you have to invest in yourself by spending the time and talking to these people. Don't just come to these events and then just go away and say, boy, that was a good speech, or we did hear that. You have to spend some time and get the information, get the contact information. Central to this now is Headline. Bother them, annoy them, and establish a network. And I want to encourage you, it's a great time to be in the music business. Don't follow the noise about this and this dead and that dead and that dead. You make your own pathway. And I want to encourage you to keep up the good work and keep Jamaica and keep the Jamaican music alive. Bless up.
Bop, bop.
Well said, well said. Agreed.
Yes, thank you so very much, Steve. Thank you, Dana. Everyone, please give them a big round of applause.
Thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause for showing up. Also, give yourselves a round of applause for showing up.
Yes.